The 1995-96 Chicago Bulls are without question the greatest team in the history of the NBA. Ranked first in both offensive and defensive rating, along with the league's lowest turnover rate and the highest offensive rebound rate, plus the highest overall net rating in the history of basketball, accompanied with the league's greatest player and a 72-10 record en route to the NBA championship. It's a no-brainer. This version of the Chicago Bulls is the greatest team of all time. And now the question remains, what would it take to surpass them?
Chicago Bulls have won the NBA championship.
Now, there have been many teams over the years that have come close, but there was always some obstacle in the way that prevented them from surpassing the Bulls. For instance, let's take the 73-9 Golden State Warriors. While they did break the regular season record, they didn't win the championship, which is arguably the most important aspect of the whole, greatest team ever label. Not to mention, in that same season, there was another team, the San Antonio Spurs, who was basically just as good. In fact, the Spurs boasted a higher net rating than the Warriors. Here, take a look at this. What do you see here? Well, this is a list of the highest single-season net ratings in history. The 2015-16 Warriors are just barely in the top 10. More importantly, of these 12 teams, 9 of them went on to win the NBA championship. That's 75% for those who suck at math. Oh, and hey look, the Thunder are right here, all the way up here, sandwiched between these two Bulls teams. So what does this mean exactly? Just because the 2024-25 Oklahoma City Thunder have the second highest net rating ever, it doesn't necessarily mean they're the second best team ever, right? Well, there's more to their dominance than just that, and they've dominated the season in a way that's been unseen for several decades. However, they certainly don't get the respect or notoriety of being the second best team ever. Actually, I don't even hear people put them in the conversation, and perhaps it's for multiple reasons. There's a huge portion of the fan base who despises this team, even with their success. But before we dive into the details of the good and the bad, I have an announcement to make. So I recently launched my membership club for my channel. I'm in the process of working with editors to help me increase my video output. So instead of 1 video per week, I'm trying to aim for 2 videos per week, and they're gonna be longer and more detailed. I've always edited my own videos for like the last 8 years, so this is new for me. However, that comes at a cost. I've added this option to support me. For $2.99 a month, I'll be able to double my content, maybe even triple. And there's some perks on top of it too. If you do become a member, you'll get early access to my videos, loyalty badges, priority replies, and some cool face emojis of NBA players, which I'll be adding more of as more members join. Thank you again for all the support over the years, and thank you for those who are willing to support me on this new journey. Let's start with the good. In addition to their fantastic net rating, OKC averaged 10.3 steals per game as a team. No team has averaged over 10 steals a game since the 1990s. OKC's 11.7 turnovers per game were historically low, the 10th lowest in history, and the only team in the top 10 that scores over 120 points per game. Adjusted for pace, they have the lowest turnover rate ever. Unlike the Bulls, who were first in both offense and defense, the Thunder are first in offense but only third in defense. I'm saying this like it's a bad thing. It's not. It's still fantastic, obviously. For reference, the 2016 Warriors were first in offense and fifth in defense. The 2024 Celtics were first and third, just like OKC. Oh, and listen to this. OKC also secured the largest win differential between the first and second seeds in history. A 16-game difference between them and the second seed Houston Rockets. Just insanity. On top of all this, the Thunder also made history as the youngest team ever to win at least 65+ games. With an average age of 24.8, they're younger than any other team that accomplished as much as them. With all that being said, here's the nail-biting question that everyone is wondering. This is a team that's so good, they're so young, they play at such a fast pace, so they're super exciting. They have likable guys on their roster who always look like they're having a great time. And many of them exhibit such great energy that make you want to root for them. They're probably closer in age to most of my viewers, so they should be more relatable to fans in general. So here comes the question, why are most fans indifferent towards the Oklahoma City Thunder? Let's break down all the reasons I can think of. Not that I agree with them, but I believe it's the general perception from the average fan. First, honestly, I think it starts with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Despite averaging Jordan-esque numbers on a 68-win team, there's no doubt he'd win MVP like 99% of the time. But it still became a hugely debated topic. Part of it has to do with Jokic and his own historical season, but I feel like the larger part has to do with his playstyle.
His right arm up. So is that a natural shooting motion? No, but he was just trying to bait him in the foul. Once he gets that hand in there, you think of James Harden, you think of those players that are great at drawing fouls. Shai is one of them.
Not everyone's a fan of Shai, in particular, his foul drawing antics. Obviously, there's more to Shai's dominance than just his free throws. Like, his footwork is otherworldly. The way he gets to the rim with pure skill is just captivating to watch. But much like James Harden of the past, people do not like foul grifters. And when it happens, all we can do is throw our hands up in the air and say, come on. Heck, I'm sure people feel the same way about Jimmy Butler, Trae Young, or even Jalen Brunson whenever they try to bait their opponents into fouling. Shai is not immune to the same criticism, but perhaps that's why it makes us even more mad. He's so skilled that he doesn't need to be doing this. In reality, his total number of free throw attempts, it's not even that bad. It's lower than most all-time great shooting guards like Kobe or Jordan or D. Wade in his prime, all of whom were notorious for foul baiting as well. D. Wade got a lot of flack for it, especially in 2006.
And remaining in the fourth quarter. Where's the foul? No foul.
Harden for sure got a ton of flack with his arm hooks and other weird stuff he did to try and get free throws. I'd even argue that the reason Harden only has one MVP is because of his reputation of doing stuff like this. That same energy, that same animosity towards Harden and Wade have somewhat seeped into Shai's reputation as well, even though, in my opinion, those two were way more egregious at it. Second, an unproven team. Folks do not tend to give credit to teams or players who are unproven. When the 1996 Bulls recorded the greatest season ever, they already had the resume to back it up. Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, they were together for their first three-peat, so they were already proven. Hence why they were respected, far more than this current squad in OKC. To a lesser extent, it's similar for the 2016 Warriors, who already won the championship in the previous year. For OKC, they're in a weird place, because they got prematurely knocked out in the previous season to the Dallas Mavericks, a team that they were expected to beat. Not to mention, in previous years, they've also had visible holes in their roster that people tend to remember. Like, everyone watches the Lakers, so they saw them get dismantled by Anthony Davis, and now the audience thinks to themselves, oh wow, OKC is overrated. They've lost some highly visible games on national television, and it kinda stuck on everyone's minds. In actuality, they've fixed most of the holes on their roster, and they've become truly a team with zero weaknesses. Long story short, they need to prove themselves in the playoffs before getting the same respect as other all-time legendary teams.
Yo, shut up. Yo, on live TV?
You can't say that on live TV.
Third, and this is something that I've noticed through conversations with friends and other basketball fans, there's a level of anonymity to OKC. Let me give you an example. When you think of the Bulls, you think of MJ, Scottie, Dennis Rodman. When you think of the Warriors, you think of Steph, Clay, Draymond Green, and Harrison Barnes bricking every shot in the finals. Just kidding. Now, when you think of the Thunder, you think of Shai, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Hartenstein. They just don't have the same cultural impact or name recognition as other teams. Even Shai himself, I feel like the NBA fanbase had a very hard time putting him in the same conversation as Jokic or Giannis or Luka. During an era where people are obsessed with numbers, those three guys put up such gaudy stats across the board. Shai, on the other hand, is known primarily as a scorer. Even when he's proven to be one of the league's best perimeter defenders, the detractors point to, oh, but what about Lou Dort or Cason Wallace or Chet? They're the ones defending the toughest opponents most of the time. Shai's individual defensive dominance has been overshadowed because his own teammates are such good defenders too. Despite being a superstar, he has yet to reach the household name level of superstar. And along with a relatively unknown supporting cast who don't spark the headlines, OKC has remained a somewhat anonymous team that doesn't have much support outside of OKC. Fourth, jealousy. Remember when the Celtics won the championship in 2024? It seemed like almost every fan base outside of Boston rooted for them to lose. We all knew they were dominant. We all knew they recorded the best record in franchise history. With all their illustrious past, this team, led by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, was statistically better than anything in the Larry Bird or the Big Three era. Even so, nobody wanted to see Boston add yet another championship banner to the rafters. Now, I'm not saying OKC generates the same level of hatred as the Celtics do. Well, besides the fans from Seattle who lost their team. That makes sense. I'm rooting for y'all to get your team back. However, with the Thunder's sudden surge into the most elite of NBA ranks, I think there's a level of jealousy. Since Sam Presti joined the organization, they really haven't had any bad eras. They never even tried to tank yet, something that other teams have spent years upon years doing. At a certain level, I think fans of other teams look towards the Thunder's success and think, they don't deserve it. They're fans. I mean, it's not the fault of the fans, but the city kinda stole the team from Seattle. And now they're experiencing success that their own team has struggled with for so long. Regardless, the lack of losing is a huge factor. And the feeling that they managed to avoid disaster after disaster by making great trades after great trades and great signings, why can't we have nice things? Why can't we all have a front office as competent as theirs? In a way, their fans are spoiled. I remember living through the New York Knicks during the mid-2000s. Under Isaiah Thomas, he basically destroyed the franchise, and in my opinion, it was the most discombobulated era in the history of any NBA franchise. Just with the sheer amount of scandals, and the ridiculousness that was going on off the court. While the Knicks have revitalized their franchise over the last couple seasons, it took such a long time. I myself still hope that we can have the same sort of continuity as the Oklahoma City Thunder, and how well they rebuild without even having a bad era since they moved to Oklahoma. At least, not yet. Anyway, that's all folks. Thank you all so much for watching. What are your thoughts on the Oklahoma City Thunder's 2024-25 season? I think regardless of how good they are, fans are still waiting for them to prove it, to show a level of playoff dominance not just in the first few rounds, but across the entire postseason before they get the same level of respect as other all-time great teams. Let me know in the comment section your thoughts if you agree or disagree with my assessments. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for your continued support. And of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.